Expat on Pet Talk. Welcome to 5 Question Friday. I am Sarah of Expat in Croatia, and every Friday at 5 o'clock Croatia time, answer 5 questions from people who have sent them in on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email, LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure I'm like making gobbledygook of this now. I usually have it memorized. Yeah, and people who scream them at me. My brain, I gotta say, is just a little fried today. I won't lie. If you have been remotely paying attention for the last 2 weeks, you know that I was on the island of Lošinj doing this intensive Croatian immersion course with the Croatian language school, which was incredible, and I loved every bit of it. But my brain's just a bit tired. It is, and so I have found that it just hasn't been working properly since I got back. Case in point, last night I went to our Foreign Business Owners Association meeting here in Split and found out about halfway through that my shirt was inside out. I had no idea, but that's what we're dealing with today. So I hope you are okay with that. I'm not at my best, but I will tell you where I am. This is one of my favorite spots in Split. I am at Park Sustipan, which in my experience, many foreigners who live in Split don't know about Sustipan because it is a little bit out of the way, but it's a super special place. So it's a park that is on a cliff over the sea. So if you can see behind me, see, that's sea right there. And that right there, that is sea right there too. So there's all these beautiful Italian cypress trees and other shade trees that you can sit under and have a picnic. So even during the summer when it's really hot, there's this beautiful breeze that comes up over the cliff and through the park, like right now. So I hope the wind isn't... Oh, Jerry's here. He says don't blow away with the wind. I'm trying not to, Jerry. I'm trying not to. So guys, let me know if the wind is a little bit too much. But it's really super beautiful here right now. It's nice and cool. And we're under the gazebo, this thing here that you cannot see right now. But anyways, a fun fact, because I have a friend who's full of fun facts with me here today. And what I learned. So Sustipan, and I did not know this as long as I've been here, that Sustipan is actually a local way to say St. Stephen. So that's actually the origin of the name of the park. So you can see the phone is just like blowing in the wind. We're just gonna have to roll with it, guys. Yeah, so it's one of my favorite places to be here because since so many people don't know about it, it's really kind of quiet here, even in the height of season, and you can get this amazing view of Split. So the opposite direction, you have this big panorama of the palace and the marina and everything. So if you happen to be in Split, I highly recommend you check it out if you have not already. Oh, thank you. I love this outfit too. This is the first time I am pairing this hat with this dress, and I'm kind of digging it. Hi, Kata from Calgary, Canada. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so I am going to do a video where I talk about my experience on Lošinj. It was quite life-changing. I need to digest everything, so in the next couple of weeks, look out for that video. I did do an interview with the Croatian language school that went up today. I'm going to share it in our stories probably later today or tomorrow, so keep a lookout for that. But I'm also going to write about it. I mean, it wasn't just about the language course, it was also just the experience of the island of Lošinj, which was, I think it's really easy to be like, you know, all the islands are the same. No, they're not. No, they're not. Every single time I go to a new Croatian island, well, new to me, Croatian island, they all have their own vibration, their own energy, their own, I don't know, there's something about them. They all have their own personality, and I felt like Lošinj was the exact same way. It almost felt like I was in an alternate universe, if that makes sense. Like, okay, there's sea and there's pine trees and there's boats. I know this is Croatia. It just doesn't feel like it somehow, if that makes sense. They call Lošinj the island of vitality, and I absolutely get that. I feel like I came back a different person, but a person that's not rested. So once I'm rested, I'll be able to better articulate what that experience was like. Yeah, guys, it's super, super windy. Yes. Okay. Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm so glad you liked the first creation story, Kragerpotamus. That was... So, for those of you who don't know, I did a series of different videos where I spoke in Croatian throughout the week of that course, and the last one, the grand finale that I assigned myself, was doing my first episode of Today in Croatia completely in Croatian. So it was my first story that I told in Croatian, and that was really hard. I practiced that a lot with my teacher for a whole week, and I was so good at it, and then I started recording it, and I felt like I started stepping all over myself, you know, with nervousness, but that's just how it goes. You have to start somewhere. All right, we're going to go ahead and dig into the stories now. Stories, questions, guys, brain dead. Seriously. Should be put in a straitjacket. Okay, all right. So, if you're just joining us, I am Sarah of Expat in Croatia, a little bit loopier than usual, and I'm going to answer 5 questions about Croatia. They were submitted by you. Okay, so this first one comes from Daryl. Daryl is a frequent flyer here on 5 Question Friday. He asked, my friend wants to apply for permanent residence as she has 5 years of temporary residence. However, she is concerned about the language test. If she fails the language test, will that affect her application? No. No. So let me explain about this language test for permanent residence. It's not administered by the police, by MOOC. They don't administer it. There are different places where you can go and take the test. In our guide on permanent residence, you can, we have a list of all of those places where you can go and take the test because they're approved by the police for test taking. I did it myself at the Filosofski Fakultet in Split. So they're not connected to the police. They don't report your grade to the police. So you can take it as many times as you want. So if you fail the first time, just keep taking it until you pass. And then tell MOOC once you pass. Like, you don't have to tell MOOC that you failed. At least at the Filosofski Fakultet, which there are multiple Filosofski Fakultets around the country, they only offer it once a month. So you can keep taking it. It's not going to affect your permanent residence application, so don't worry about that. So we have a few guides that we can send you about this. We have a guide on how to apply for permanent and long-term residence. Those are 2 different things. They used to be one thing, but then Parliament decided it needed to be 2 things. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But those are the rules. We'll talk about the differences between those 2 things another time. We also have a guide on how to transition from temporary to permanent or long-term, because there are some things that you need to keep in mind there. So we'd be more than happy to send those to you if you would like. I also talk about in the guide on permanent my experience with taking the test. So I go into a lot of detail on that. So if you're curious on what that's like, send us a DM. We will send those guides over to you so you can learn about that. Okay, thank you so much, Daryl. All right, so next is, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, so I'm going to say it multiple ways to try and cover my bases. Julito, Yulito. I'm hoping one of those is right. So this came in through the 5 Question Friday form. Are people with high blood sugar fit to work in Croatia, or are the workers allowed to take maintenance to control it? Yes and yes. So Croatia doesn't require a medical exam to get a work permit here. I know that there are some countries that do require it. Croatia does not require that. Now, maybe there are some jobs that want you to be physically fit. I haven't heard of an example before, but that's possible that that exists. I don't think that they would be looking for high blood sugar. I've never heard of an example of that. So I think you're good there. Now, aside from that, let me tell you about pauza. So, the wind is making me eat my hair. Okay. In Croatia, you have this thing called pauza. Pauza is a beautiful thing. Pauza is when you take a break or a timeout or something like that. Now, there are all different kinds of pauza, and we do have an article called All You Need is Pauza, where we go through all the different kinds. But the kind that we're going to talk about today is the pauza that is mandated by the government in the labor law. So if you are working more than 6 hours in a shift, you must be given a 30-minute pauza every time you do more than 6 hours. That is required. It is part of your working hours. So if you are supposed to be working 40 hours a week, that is supposed to include a pausa for each day that you work, and that's paid. So that would be the time when you can deal with blood sugar, eating, or whatever it is that you need to do. Now, there is another pausa that is mandated by the labor law, and this is for new mothers. If you're a new mother, then as long as your child is under 1 year, you can take a 2-hour pausa every day to do breastfeeding and any other kind of motherly duties that you might need to do. So if you are interested in pausa and want to learn more about that, because it's really important to understand the culture, we have a post on that. So send us a DM. We'd be more than happy to send that over to you. Okay. I see we have a question from Jerry. Let me scroll up and get it. Do you have some favorite Croatian musicians? Dino Dvornik I like very much. My friend's just like, yeah. Yeah, I can't not say Oliver. I mean, come on, right? Yeah, right now Dino Dvornik is a musician that I really dig. I really dig. And Ništa kontra Splita, I was listening to that song Wednesday when I was driving into town. Like right as I got off the highway, that came on the radio, and I was like, yes, yes. Yeah, we have a series called Croatian Music Guide, where we talk about some like legendary Croatian musicians, and then we give you 5 YouTube videos of the 5 songs that you need to know, like the place to start with learning about those artists. So we have a whole section on the website for that. If you would like it, send us a DM, we'll send it over to you. Okay, I'm gonna scroll back down, make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay, yes. All right. Now, next, this comes from Justin through the 5 Question Friday forum. My Croatian great-grandfather's name was slightly Americanized, as was that of my American-born grandmother, and there is no official record of this, as it happened before Social Security and other official identification measures were instituted in the United States in the 1930s. Will this cause a problem with my citizenship application? This is a great question, especially because it's super common. Okay. So, whenever Croatians left Croatia to move to any country, really, but predominantly the native English-speaking ones, their names were anglicized. Now, to different degrees. It could be just a last name, it could be the last name and the first name. Very common, like each would be changed to ICH instead of ICH. That's the most common. Ivan was very commonly changed to John. Madia was very commonly changed to Mary. So it depends on how extreme the name change is. It's such a common thing that it's not going to derail an application necessarily. Like he didn't provide the example of what the difference is with the name changes, so I can't speak to his particular situation. But for very minor changes, what you have to do is you have to explain it in your CV biography. Your CV biography is like a cover letter for your citizenship application. Everyone over 18 has to write one. Yes. So in that, you should explain, hey, my relative was named this. You can see that on their birth certificate. Then they moved to the United States and it was changed to this. You can see that on their marriage certificate or the birth certificate of their kid or whatever. So you can see that the second that they moved to the new country, it has been changed. Now, with more severe situations, it can be a little bit trickier. I find that whenever you have any kind of serious name change, more than just an ICH, you should really consult with a lawyer. I mean, I harp on all about this a lot because anytime you do citizenship applications, you should really involve a lawyer if you want to make sure that it's done right. But especially if there's an egregious name change, because depending on how bad it is, they can back channel with MUP and be like, hey, is this enough? Like, are you cool? Like, can you connect the dots? Can you see the lineage with these documents? And they'll tell you yes, or they'll tell you no. We had one person out there, a fan of 5 Question Friday, I won't say who it is, but her lawyer had to go back, I don't know, over the course of a year, just kept going back with more documents, more documents, and MOB just kept saying no, 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 until they finally said yes. So it really just depends on the situation. I wouldn't say that's a reason not to try. It's just a reason to make sure that you have an advocate who can help guide you on your particular situation, and then it's properly addressed in the application. Okay, Sherry's got a question. I recently watched a documentary on the Adriatic Highway. Are drivers that crazy from your experience? No crazier than other places. I mean, look, I do feel like there are a lot of people who make comments about the driving of Croatian drivers, but especially split drivers. Coming from Dallas, I mean, people drive bonkers there too. Have I seen some crazy stuff here? I have seen some crazy stuff here. There's this big boulevard here called Poliška Cesta, and it's 3 lanes on either side. And I saw a guy in the far right lane, when the light turned green, cut off 3 lanes of traffic to turn left. I mean, that is a thing that happens. I'm pretty convinced that the way I'm going to die is in a crosswalk. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But honestly, people say that people in Cambodia drive nuts, and in Turkey they drive nuts, and in Italy they drive nuts, and in France they drive nuts, and in the United States they drive nuts, and in Mexico they drive nuts. Everybody drives nuts. Everybody does. So I can't possibly say that Croatia is any more reckless than any other country, quite frankly. Thank you for that question. Oh, we got a few. Oh, Katie! Hey, Katie! Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Okay, thank you for the compliment on the dress. Yes, I love it. And Elena, yeah, I'm doing my best to stay positive. I mean, I have my days. I have my days where I'm not feeling positive, but isn't that just life? It's just life, man. Okay, all right. So next we have, sorry, I didn't finish that one. So we have tons of guides on citizenship that are completely free. If you would like some of our guides on citizenship, because we have so many of them, send us a DM and just tell us a little bit about yourself and what your basis for citizenship is, and we will send you the guide particularly for your situation. Or if you want to talk it out, you can always schedule a consulting session with myself or my colleague Cam, or we can connect you with a lawyer. So all of those are available to you. Just send us a DM. Okay, so next, this comes from Simon through our 5-Question Friday form. I'm a UK national resident living in the UK, but also I hold a 1-year French long-stay visa. Can I visit Croatia under the 90-180-day rule in addition to and irrespective of how long I spend in France? Most likely, but here's the thing. I know Croatia rules. I do not know France rules. I don't know Germany's rules. I don't know Bosnia's rules. I know Croatia. Croatia is enough of a handful, so that is all I can speak to. I can make assumptions here, and that's what I'm going to do in this situation to be able to answer it. So there's something I need to talk to you about first, though, before I answer that question. He said he had a 1-year French long stay visa. Okay? So this is a bit of a pet peeve of mine that I want to make sure I unpack. In Croatia, you have a visa and you have a residence permit. A visa is for short-term stays, like when you're here on business or you're here as a tourist. Okay? A residence permit is when you want to stay in Croatia for longer than 90 days. So those two things are different. There is no digital nomad visa. That is not a thing that exists here. We have a digital nomad residence permit, but we do not have a digital nomad visa. So he has a French 1-year visa. Now in France, they call it a visa. In a lot of other countries, they do call long-term stays or residence permits, they call them visas, but Croatia doesn't do that. So I want to make sure I get the nomenclature right. So I'm assuming, based on the context clues, that this 1-year visa he has in France is a residence permit. So when we're talking about the days that are counted against your Schengen time, which you're allowed 90 days in a 180-day period in the entire Schengen area, and you're allowed 90 days in a 180-day period in each individual country, as long as you don't have a residence permit. So you have a residence permit in Croatia, you're not accumulating Schengen time in Croatia. If you have a residence permit or long-term visa in France, presumably you're not accruing Schengen time in France. But if you are outside, if you're in the Schengen area or another country in Europe where you do not have a residence permit, you are accruing time. So, now that we've set the stage, let me answer his question. The time he spends in France where he has a permit to stay long term, that time there should not affect the amount of time he has left that would allow him to travel to Croatia as a tourist. Ta-da! And see. Okay. We do have a guide on Schengen. If you would like to see it to understand what that means, please send us a DM. Croatia joined the Schengen zone on January 1st. And I want to be clear here because a lot of people have said to me this year, like so many people, I'd be a millionaire now if I had a kuna for every time someone said this. Since Croatia joined the EU this year, no. Croatia joined the European Union in 2013. Croatia joined the Schengen zone and the Eurozone this year on January 1st. Not equivalent. Okay. Come on, phone. All right. Next, and I think this is my last question, yes, Britain. This came on a consulting session, and I was super excited to answer this. How do we handle healthcare on the island? Oh, let me tell you. Okay. Access to healthcare on the islands can vary wildly, okay? But there are certain themes that you're going to have to contest with, okay? So, generally speaking, islands don't have a hospital, which means if you need a hospital, you gotta come to the mainland. Some islands are closer than others. So Sholta, which you can barely see because it's so muggy and gross right now, is a 45-minute ferry ride away. Brač, which is behind me but you can't see it because of all the mugginess, is a 55-minute ferry ride away. Okay, and that's assuming you're near the port. You know, you could be on the other side of Brač and it be like 45 minutes or an hour drive just to get to the port, and then another hour here, and then you have to get to the hospital. So that's something to keep in mind. If you are not capable of taking yourself to the mainland, you will be helicoptered in to the hospital, or by boat, says my friend. Okay, now, if you have chronic health issues, or you're older, or you have kids, these are things that you should keep in mind. And you also want to know what your proximity is to just like regular daily health care as well before you need it. Now, on some smaller islands like Lastovo, for example, which is very, very far away, family doctors don't even work full time. They cover such a small number of residents. And in fact, someone told me recently who lives on Brač that in the city of Milna, which is one of the bigger towns, that they only have one doctor, and he only works 1 day a week, and you never know which day that's going to be. So a lot of people I know that live on Brač, they actually come and they go to the doctor here in Split. And that's something to keep in mind. Okay, also, the healthcare facilities on the islands may not have all the new equipment. They may have older equipment. They may be missing an ultrasound. Ultrasounds can be very common in doctors' offices here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that an island is going to have that. So that's also important to keep in mind. Now, generally speaking, I'm going to pause right now because I see Marina has made a comment. She said she took the boat ambulance 4 hours it took 4 hours for the boat ambulance to get to her on the island because they were busy with a cardiac event. That's a great example. Thank you, Marina, for sharing that. Okay, so what I want to leave you with, I think it's very common for people to have this beautiful dream of living on an island in Croatia. And I get it. I get it entirely. I mean, I just spent 10 days on a beautiful island and I was like, But here's the thing. I want to make sure that I preface this by saying I'm not trying to talk you out of living on an island. And I'm not bashing Croatia. I'm not at all. But I think people focus on the beauty of the island, little stone house, being by the sea, not many people, and they don't necessarily think about their access to stuff. We're talking about healthcare right now, but there are a lot more pieces to that puzzle that you really should take into consideration. Now, I wrote an article called 15 Reasons That Living on a Croatian Island is Not the Dream That You Think It Is. So if you would like to read that, we will send it over to you. Just send us a DM, because there are a lot of things you need to understand about that. It is tough. It can be lonely. The internet can be crappy. The weather can be terrible. It's a very small community. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider. That's what I'll say about that. Okay, Jerry, have you attended a High Duke split football game before? Yes, I have. I have a few times. The last time I went, I got like mugged because I hadn't been in a really long time. I don't know what it was about, but maybe the woman saw us all coming, because there was a group of like 6 or 7 of us, and all of us were foreign, and they took all of our stuff, like all of our stuff. They took my chapstick, they took my mirror, they took a pen I had, they took, I had a lip gloss, they took that. Pretty much everything except for my wallet they took from me, and they put everybody's stuff into a box, and then when you came back out of the game, you had to sift through everybody's stuff and just get your stuff and just hope that it was going to be there. And it was a little upsetting and irritating, because you're sitting there, and then across the field on the other side in the fan zone, the Torcida, the fan club, they have flags with 4-meter tall flagpoles, and they're setting fires and setting off flares, and I'm like, wait a minute, I can't bring in my chapstick, but they can bring in flares? I don't understand. I don't understand this at all. Okay, Tanya, what do you have to say? Living on the island so far is great, but yes, it has its challenges. Very community-oriented and lovely atmosphere in the village. We are on Korčula. Yeah, Korčula is interesting. I love Korčula. Korčula is interesting because when I put that post out a couple years ago, I got a lot of feedback from people on Korčula who were like, this isn't how it is. And it makes me think that Korčula is, I don't know, a little bit more special, and my Croatian friend agrees. Because look, there are 1,300 islands, and I don't want to generalize and say that they're all the same, because they are not. They are not the same at all, which is what I said at the very start of this episode of 5 Question Friday when I was talking about Lošinj. They all are completely different in personality as well as just general access to things. So every one of them is different. Thank you so much for sharing that, Tanya. Okay. Guys, we're done now. Thank you so much for being here, putting up with my wind and foggy brain. I really love this time with you guys, and I gotta say I was a little bit down today because I'm really sleep deprived, and when I get sleep deprived I get a little bit grumpy, but I was so looking forward to this because doing 5 Question Friday always cheers me up if I'm down in the dumps. So thank you so much for cheering me up and for being here. So next Friday, actually it's Sunday, I'm driving to Petrinja, and I'm going to be spending the week in Petrinja and Sisak with my colleague Maria. She's our content manager. And so next Friday, we'll be doing 5 Question Friday from there, somewhere in that area. I put something out on our stories. If you've been in that area or from that area, we would love to hear any of your suggestions of what we should do, see, eat, meet, whatever. So if you have any ideas, feel free to send us a DM. We would love to hear what you think. So, aw, Katie, thank you. You cheer me up too. Okay, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for being here again. And if you have a question you want to see on 5 Question Friday, send us a message and maybe it will be answered here on a future episode. So, bye. See you later. Vidimo, say ciao.